What's up, guys? Welcome to Voicey here. This is your happy host, Captain Zach, and today's subreddit is r/EntitledParents. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. This story's called Karen Thinks Her Brat Can Play in Our Garden, My Dog Gets Hurt and the Police is Called. Here's the cast. Karen. Her brat. My mom. Me. Think back to the summer of 2018, the year this story occurred. My mom and I were home alone because the rest of our family was either working or at school. We were sitting in our kitchen and chatting a bit, while my cute booty dog is outside in the garden napping under some trees. We can watch her through our kitchen window that offers the perfect view into our garden. Said garden is quite big. We have a miniature greenhouse, a lot of plants and flowers, fruit trees, etc. And in the far back is a big trampoline, a sandbox, and 2 swings. We live at the main street of our suburb, so a lot of people pass by over the day. Our backyard is not only cut off by a gate, but the garden is also separated from the parking space for our cars through tall bushes. You can barely see the garden outside of the property, and you're only able to see one of the swings at a specific angle. The gate was closed when the story happened, so my mom and I are just talking when suddenly my dog appears next to me, very much frightened. Trying to calm her down, I sit on the floor and cuddle her, wondering what scared her so much that she fled the garden. You have to know, she's very easily scared. She never barks and doesn't attack in situations of danger. She runs. So obviously, something must have happened and it wasn't the neighbor's cat for sure. While I'm on floor level, my mom has a perfect view into the garden and suddenly says, "What the actual frick?" I stand up and look outside as well, only to see a woman and her daughter I've never seen before in my life stand in the middle of our garden. My mom and I decide to confront her, obviously, and go outside. My sweet pup follows us, ready to protect us even though she is scared to death. I love her and I would die for her, not gonna lie. "Excuse me, what are you doing here?" "Entitled kid just wanted to play and I need to relax for a bit. This playground is just perfect for her." She sits down on one of our outside stools. "I'm sorry, what? This is private property. My family lives here? This is our private garden. You can't be here." "Don't be silly. This is a public space." She literally closed her eyes and faced the sun after that. I'll never forget that. "You are literally trespassing. I want you and your daughter to leave right now." She opens her eyes again. "Don't lie to me. I'm not stupid." "Okay, miss. We're going to give you a minute to collect your kid and leave our garden or we're calling the cops on you. You're committing a crime. Please get your daughter and leave." "What the frick? Are you people stupid or something? My daughter just wants to play. She's not breaking anything." I was really mad at this point. "Freaking leave our garden or I will sue the crap out of you." She had the audacity to roll her eyes at me. My mom and I just look at each other and she takes out her phone to call the police. Karen sees this and suddenly gets up really fast. Okay, we're leaving." "Entitled kid." "Frickin' who ars? You stuck-up benches." We decide to ignore the swearing and just watch her kid walking over to her with a shovel in her hand. My mom still has the phone in her hand, ready to call. "But mommy, I want to play." "I know, but those bad people don't want us here. They're really mean to us, so we have to leave." "But mommy." Entitled kid just cries out for mommy for a solid minute while entitled mother is taking her sweet time getting ready to leave our garden. Now, remember that my sweet angel dog was still next to me, scared but ready to protect my booty. Suddenly, that freaking entitled brat just stops crying, looks at my dog, and throws the freaking shovel at my dog and actually hits her hard. That thing, being made out of metal, must have hurt like hell, and my dog cries out in pain. Entitled kid hit her at the head-neck area. I pick her up as fast as I can, basically screaming at the kid that she just willingly hurt a living and feeling animal, while my mom doesn't even wait for a second and calls the police. Entitled mother is yelling at us that she and her brat didn't do anything wrong and that this was our own fault, that she's ready to leave, etc. while actually trying to leave. But since there is only one exit out of the garden because our high bushes block the rest, my mom simply blocks it. I'm calling my brother at the same time to come home as soon as possible to go to the vet with our pup. My brother and the police arrive at the same time, and while he takes my angel away, I stay with my mom. Entitled mother is still yelling and entitled kid is crying again. Screw that kid, honestly. And entitled mother, being a true Karen, tries to blame us. But since she's obviously not where she's supposed to be and she's fighting back, she hits one of the cops in the face, she finds herself in cuffs pretty quick. In the end, entitled mother got convicted, is that the correct term? Ha ha ha, oh no, my butt fell off! For trespassing and assault on an officer. But because it was her little dookie that attacked my dog, they got away with that. I don't know the medical terms, but my dog's neck was hurt and she was on medication for some time. But the worst thing is that she's now scared of little brunette girls because that brat looked like that. And she avoids the garden if someone is playing with the shovels. To this day, I still ask myself how the heck a person can even think that our garden is a public playground. You can barely see it from outside the property. So yeah, shout out to the entitled mother and entitled kid that hurt my dog and gave her a fear for life. Genuinely, go screw yourself. Okay, I'm confused as to why the kid threw the shovel at the dog. That is horrible. That is so sad. That is one of the... Oh my god. That is horrible. Like, what the heck? The puppy didn't do anything, man. This story's called My Adventures with a Wholly Entitled Mother. At the beginning of his senior year in high school, my youngest son brought home a stray kid. He quietly took me aside and asked if this boy could stay at our house. He said that the poor kid was scared of his parents and needed somewhere to stay while he tried to graduate from high school. This was a bit different than bringing home a stray kitten. I, of course, started asking questions. The first of which was, what was the kid's name? I recognized the last name though, and was hoping in the depths of my soul that his mother wasn't who I thought it was, because this gal was bonkers. A vicious pounding on the front door just a few minutes later confirmed my fears. There was the bonkers lady on my porch. With her were two cops. She immediately started screeching that I had kidnapped her son. To this day, I have been unable to find out how she knew her poor son was at my house. The boys hadn't told anyone they were coming for fear of this happening, and this was way before cell phones were common. I stepped outside and stood with my arms crossed, waiting for her to stop screaming. While waiting, I looked over to the two cops that were with her. I could see right away that one of them was going to be a problem because of the way he was frowning. The other one just looked embarrassed. Then she stopped screaming to take a breath and I started asking, "How old is your son?" She looked at me and screamed that it was none of my business. I told her that it was my business as well as the police's business because no one could move forward until this information was brought forth. The cop that looked like he would be a problem started frowning harder at me. I asked him if I was right and he said that, and I kid you not, God is above all worldly laws. Oh boy, this was gonna suck. You see, this woman was freaky crazy about the Pentecostal church. You know, the kind where dancing around with snakes and falling to the floor while jabbering is not only expected, but encouraged. I now had two such folks on my porch in the form of a cop and an entitled mother. This was gonna be one ridiculous hassle. I really hated hassles, especially stupid ones. I stuck my head in the door of my house and asked the kid how old he was. When he told me he was 17, his mother once again started screaming. "He's lying! He's only 16 and I demand that he come out of there now!" I guess you can lie if you're holy. She lunged for the door, but I was faster and locked it before I pulled it shut. She shoved me out of the way and began to frantically shriek and pound on the door. I was beginning to wonder if she was going to break my doorknob because of the way she was attacking it. This was when the embarrassed cop ordered her to stop. This crazy woman would have charged into my house if I hadn't locked the door. The frowning cop told me to get the kid. I told him that 17 was a legal age in this state for situations like this, and he didn't have to come out for anyone. I knew this because I had grown up in a troubled home and I had left at 17. There was no way I was going to hand over a kid to someone acting like this if I didn't have to. The woman started screaming again, but this time she was screaming something about her having it on good authority that my husband was a pot dealer. This was funny because in all the years I had been with my hubby, he had never even tried pot. He thinks smoking anything is stupid. I have no clue where this came from. In fact, I was more likely to have pot than my hubby. But I knew a warrant would be needed for this kind of crap and the frowning cop didn't react to this. Just kept on frowning. He knew I was right. I stood and listened to the screeching, and now there were tears mixed in. for a few seconds. I wanted to see if she would calm down and behave normally. When she didn't, I told them to leave and I went inside. I had to go around to the back door because I didn't have my keys on me. She continued to freak out with huge braying sobs, but the cops made her leave with them. The poor kid was barely keeping back tears and was super embarrassed. He told me how she would make him pray out loud for hours, how she refused to let anyone but church kids be his friends, how she would come into his room and tear it all up looking for drugs, and every night she would say grace for so long the food got cold. He said she would go into fits of rage if she found anything she deemed of the devil in his possession. And this was pretty much everything. He said he hated her church and hated the weirdos there and just plain couldn't take it anymore. When I asked if his father condoned this, he told me his dad never ever said anything out loud unless it was in the form of prayer. We took the kid in. My older son had moved out for college a few months before, so I had a spare bedroom already set up for a teenager. Easy peasy. Then came the weekend. This crazy entitled mother and about 10 folks from her church, including the frowning cop, but not in uniform this time, came to my house and prayed loudly at it. They were careful to stay in the street, but it was still so dorky that it was almost comical. It was then that I had a great idea. I got a bag of chips and a bottle of soda, set up a lawn chair in my driveway, and sat there and watched them pray at me. I watched them in the same way one would watch a movie. I would look at each of them. None would look me in the eye because I was evil, while they just took turns praying loudly at my house. I just sat there, munching chips and drinking my soda. This must have disturbed them because they only kept it up for about 45 minutes. Then they all piled into a van after telling me they would pray for me. I never said a word, but I did salute them when they were leaving. They did this every weekend for months. They must have hated the cold though, because if it was too cold or snowing, they didn't show up. I would set up my lawn chair every time. Sometimes I would up the game and have a beer instead of a soda. This made them pray louder. Ha ha ha! If I were to write down everything they did while that boy was staying at our house, it would turn into a novel. This entitled mother tried everything she could to get me into trouble, but I managed to steer clear. This kid stayed with us for over a year and a half while he worked and saved up money. He made friends, went on dates, and really opened up. He became a normal teenager despite his goofy mom and her weird church. He would hang out with my son and hubby, and he became a happy kid. He then applied for and got a job teaching English in Japan, and I was really sad to see him go. He was a really good boy, and we enjoyed having him with us. 4 days after the kid left for Japan, his crazy entitled mother came over to tell me that God had listened to her prayers, and now her baby was out of our den of depravity. I only shrugged when she told me this. Whatever lets you sleep at night, entitled mom. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I honestly started tearing up during that last paragraph there. Because it's a good story. That's very wholesome, and you gotta really appreciate that family for taking the kid in. I know what it's like to have overly religious parents. I mean, obviously not to that extent. Dear God, thank you for not making that happen. But honestly, that's not just overly religious. That's, that right there is mental illness, okay? Straight up. I don't know exactly what it is, because, I'm not a psychologist and I can't really diagnose things like that. But I've heard of very similar things, and they were almost always mentally ill. I'm not saying if you're religious, you're mentally ill. No, obviously not. And Pentecostals, they aren't weird, okay? Yeah, sure, they're different from, the average American, but they're just religious. And you know what? I've never really met any crazy Pentecostals. I've only ever met kind, normal people. But honestly, you can't really blame our hero here, and yes, definitely a hero in this story. Anyway, you can't really blame her for having a negative view of Pentecostals, because that would be terrifying. But yeah, don't hate Pentecostals. They're good people. This story's called Halloween Entitled Mother Sees My Porch Light Off, Doesn't Give a Crap, Proceeds to Ring My Doorbell Over and Over, Then Has a Cow When I Don't Have Candy. I am a migraine sufferer, and they pop up at the worst possible times. One Halloween a few years ago, I had a terrible one and had to ditch the idea of answering the door for trick-or-treaters. Since I was so sensitive to light and noise, I turned off our porch light, other house lights, and went to bed. As soon as it got dark, it started. My doorbell ringing over and over. even though there were no lights on in the house. Every time it happened, my dogs would go nuts, making even more noise and making me hurt even more. I ignored it for as long as I could, but when someone leaned on the doorbell and rang it over and over and over and over again, I finally flew out of bed and ripped the door open, ready to go off. I expected a kid to be the one ringing the bell, but it was a Karen. Behind her were two little kids, dressed adorably, holding pillowcases. "What the heck, lady?" Porch light off is the international sign for no candy. Entitled mother acts as if she's unearthed an amazing secret. "I knew you were home." She shoos the kids up to me and they yell out trick or treat and thrust their pillowcases at me. I had a huge bag of candy in the kitchen, but I was so upset I totally forgot about it. "Girls, I'm sorry, but I don't have any candy. That's why my porch light was off." To the entitled mother, I say, "I don't feel well. I purposely turned off my lights so that I wouldn't be disturbed by children tonight. You should not be knocking on doors with no lights on." "It's Halloween. Surely you can suck it up for a few hours to do something that makes children smile. How can you not have any candy? I'm sure you have something in your kitchen you can give them." My head is throbbing. I can't believe this woman. Something in my kitchen? "Yes, what else do you have that you can give them since you weren't prepared?" The kids can sense that I'm frustrated and angry. They start to walk down the driveway away from us, hoping their mom will follow them to a house that actually has candy. "You better go get your kids. They're leaving." "Not until you give them something. They're owed that. It's Halloween, you selfish bench." She calls them to come back to the porch. They reluctantly wander closer. Okay, fine. I got a bottle of ketchup or a box of noodles. How about a frozen burrito or a pack of oatmeal? Does that fit your criteria? Get off my property. This is absurd. You're the absurd one. My kids deserve Halloween treats and you couldn't even be bothered to pick any up. I'm gonna tell other parents about you so they avoid your house. Promise? Yeah. Thanks, that would be very helpful. And I slammed the door in her face. I did feel bad for her kiddos. They got a crappy booty mom. Okay, that sounds insanely annoying to deal with, and I feel horrible for our Redditor. However, I also love to laugh at other people's misfortunes, so tell me down below any crappy Halloween stories you might have. No, I mean good stories, but like crappy things that happen to you or other people. I'm kidding, just any Halloween stories in general. Go crazy. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.